Greetings. Welcome to Speak Nerd and Enter.
All right, welcome to Speak Nerd and Enter. Returned from a successful hunting trip to Rook's Rest, from the blind using his trusty 870 Wingmaster, taking two of the biggest ducks ever recorded, one gold, one red, with his custom duck call, heard to liltingly sing, Dracarys, Dracarys. He'll not only steal your heart, but he'll take your head too. He's the prince who was promised, but not the one you deserve. The K-Man. And the other guys.
Yeah.
Hello.
We're here too.
On the coattails again.
That's funny.
By the way, we were talking about The Sopranos just before we got on here. And that is an amazing thing. Oh, first things first. Look at this. Now, look at that face and tell me. Same expression. I was at work and one of the ladies there said, that looks like you. He looks like he's got the exact same expression on his face that you do. But I was talking about The Sopranos up there at work, or not talking about it. We were talking about it here, and I was thinking about up at work how every now and again I go into Jersey speak and start, Abatsa, Almanaja, Ugats Fairfax. And people will look at me, I'll be Vafangul. And, Phil will look at me and go, that sounded cool. I have no idea what you said. That show stays with you. And I was thinking about that just the other day. It's funny you brought it up, Mark, because one of the funniest bits, and it wasn't outlandishly so, it was just right as to how funny it was when James Gandolfini did his appearance on SNL's Weekend Update. And as just some New Jersey resident with his opinion on what was his name, the New Jersey governor who was gay and had some affair with one of his aides or something. There was a big scandal about it, and he ended up having to.
Outside of New Jersey, I think the only governor of New Jersey anybody knows is Chris Christie, and I don't think that's who you're talking about.
No, not him. No, this was before him, and it was something about him and this guy he was having an affair with. He put him on the payroll and started, that's the reason it was a big deal.
Right.
And so they had him, James Gandolfini, come on as just some New Jersey resident with his, his opinions. And it was just so good. I love, he was so good in that role, man. Nobody could play a mob boss and still have that that endearing quality to him.
Yeah, the likability, right?
Yeah. You like Tony. You want him to succeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I was just telling you guys before we came on that my wife and I have started watching The Sopranos, and we're most of the way in season 1 right now. And I love the mobsters and the action movies and the violence and all that stuff, and so I was concerned. I didn't know what she would think of this series. She loved The Wire and we love House of the Dragon. I was like, all right, let's try The Sopranos, and she's on board. She's like, oh yeah, my boy Tony, and I'm like, okay, she's here for it.
Yeah.
And the one thing she did say is every time Meadow comes on, she's like, she's not a really good actress. And season 1, let's give her some time, right? But you know what? She's kind of right in season 1.
Yeah.
Everybody else is in their role. Even her little brother, Anthony. Like, I'm digging they all just, but it feels like she's acting like a belligerent teenager. You know what I'm saying? And when I first couple times I've seen the series, I was like, I didn't think anything of it. It's a very big ensemble cast. And then she kind of mentioned it, and I'm like, you know what? You're kind of right, but I know she has more roles in upcoming seasons, and I hope she gets better. But if she's the worst thing about The Sopranos, we're in really good shape, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't think she's terrible.
I like her.
But given how good everyone else is, I'm noticing it because she brought it up in the first season, and so I don't want this to sound overly negative on the actress, But I think in season 1 we could go, she's probably the weakest link of all of them, but she's still head and shoulders above some of the other media we've been getting. You know
See,
what I
I
mean?
think that was first season, because
Yeah.
after that she got more. I think she got more to sink her teeth into as far as the storyline,
Right.
and so some of the stuff she did in the others, I think, was actually pretty good, really pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
And
we're like episode 11, season 1.
oh,
And so
okay.
this was season 1 early. It's a bit part for her at this point. You know what I'm saying? So I don't want to have that come across as overly critical of her, but looking at it with some kind of fresh eyes with my wife and me kind of looking back over it, I'm like, I could see that where, her role is not giving her much to bite onto. And as an actress, I don't think she's found the character like she
Yeah, I think
will.
they had to discover exactly what they were going to do with all that. Because I remember even James Gandolfini said he didn't hit his groove with that until I think the second season or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure anybody did. Like season 1, they didn't know what was going to happen, or is this thing going to take
It's
off?
funny.
I mean,
I saw a behind the scenes bit with that, where they showed James Gandolfini in the background. He's like getting into character, and he would do this thing. One of the guys was talking about how he would get out there, and he used to be, I guess, a boxer or something at some point, and he'd just start jumping around, start shadow boxing a bit in the air, and start making noises and stuff. Hoo, ha, hoo, hoo. And then he'd turn around, like punch a Suburban.
Gandolfini got his groove
to
back.
get himself in the headspace of this character.
Yeah.
Dude's walking around with rocks in his shoes and punching cars and stuff to get into the headspace. And it was something. But yeah, I love that show. I love the characters. They're just really, really well done. It's based on an actual crime family in New Jersey. That what was the name of them? Oh, I can't remember the name of. But it was an actual crime family in New Jersey that I think is still there. And a lot of the plot points they had in there were actually taken from what happened to the family. So yeah, it's a pretty great show. Changed television and show business, I think.
Yeah.
Thereafter, really.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh, I even spotted a couple of cameos from people in The Wire. Yeah, you know what I mean, like some of the actors.
Well, even later on in one of
episode 1, when they rob that truck and the driver accidentally gets killed because the one guy drops his gun. The guy that drops his gun is one of the characters from The Wire. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like I don't know which was filmed first. I think The Wire came before The Sopranos.
No, I think Sopranos came first.
Sopranos came first. Okay, well, like I said, it was interesting to see, like, oh, okay, here's this actor in a really small part of one episode, and then he goes on to be in The Wire as one of the main actors. I really enjoyed kind of that little, like, hey, I know him. So
yeah, I love that show. Anyway, and Michael Imperioli did a guest spot on The Office in one of the later seasons where Dwight gets his black belt. He plays Sensei Seth, which was awesome. Anywho, there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about. I was hoping to talk about, if you guys have something more important to say. Oh, by the way, did anybody else see Furiosa besides Mark and I?
Not yet.
Okay. So still nothing there yet. Kelly, I know we'll put you up for a tentative thumbs down. and Rich will wait to see how much it deviates from the source material to piss you off.
I don't know. I'm not expecting a lot. I'm not expecting a lot out of Furiosa. I just want to be.
It was great. Furiosa was
entertaining.
Awesome.
So
I love Furiosa.
It may surprise me, just like the Godzilla movie did. So
yeah, just may. Yeah, Furiosa I thought was great. Mark hated it, but there you are.
I didn't hate it. I didn't
despised
think it stood
it.
up to the original. Despised it. Kind of a low thing.
Found it offensive.
Yeah, found it offensive. It makes me want to throw up, but I'm able to hold it in, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I'm a big Mad Max fan, so my bar is pretty high.
Did you see Beyond Thunderdome?
Yeah. I enjoyed Beyond Thunderdome, even though
Can't be that high. And by the way, not to say Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome didn't have its moments.
He did.
There were some awesome moments in there. Everyone knows the best part was Master Blaster.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the only reason to go see that movie.
That is the best. Yeah, I would have paid admission just to see that, just so we could have that meme thereafter. I think that's well worth all the money spent. I've seen, gentlemen, speaking of HBO shows, I saw an article that I wanted to bring up because I have one of the ladies at work. She loves House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, all that. She, talks to me about it all the time and such. And I brought this up with her, and then I saw this article, and it kind of, I thought, all right, I want to talk about this. Sir Kristen Cole, okay? It was an article that I think was in the Mary Sue, but I've seen others like this, where they talk about how awful a character he is, how they love to hate him, how no one likes Kristen Cole. He's just awful and a villain and all this stuff, right? And everybody hates Kristen Cole. And I don't understand that. I don't get that. I don't hate him. They look at him. As a matter of fact, the article was talking about how he was an incel and so misogynistic and, all this stuff. And first things first, I don't know how he's an incel because he's getting it on the regular.
Yeah, with
so
the Queen, right?
Yeah.
Or would you run around and call he's part of the Kingsguard, and supposedly they have this vow of chastity. It's not necessarily spelled out, but it's like you're not going to marry, you're not going to have kids, you're not going to do all of this. Like, do we run around and call like Catholic priests incels?
Yeah.
It's not involuntary. Incel means involuntarily celibate.
Right.
No, they made a choice. You know what I mean? That's not in.
Yeah, this is matter of fact, this is the second piece of royal tail he's had. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much of an incel he is.
It seems like he's doing all right.
Yeah, he's doing all right. But the other thing is that then they go into this whole thing about how his character is just so full on evil and spiteful and all this stuff. And they gloss over the fact, they say, yes, he was, it could be argued that he was taken advantage of by a superior and, then used and all that, but how essentially he should just get over it and stop being so angry and
is this
feeling
article
betrayed.
like a take on House of the Dragon through like a harassment seminar point of view? I mean,
well,
first of all, it's the Mary Sue, so it's not an article; it's a piece of propaganda.
But I've heard this before. That's not the only place I've heard it. That's why I wanted to bring it up. I think they missed the point of the writing in that, and this is what I was talking about with that lady at work, is that Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon and all of that is about choices and the unintended consequences that can come from those choices. So when people go to see a movie, go to see a show, that sort of thing, they tend to almost always try to predict how it's going to turn. Oh, this is going to lead to this. This is going to be, that kind of thing. And that's based on, of course, all the other shows they've ever seen. And so they figure, okay, someone's going to come to save Ned Stark. Ned can't die. That someone's going to step up and save him. This can't happen. That kind of thing. And then, boom, he's gone. Right. Game of Thrones is about the unintended consequences of choices that are made along the way, and that's what Sir Kristen Cole is. Just like Jamie. Jamie starts out. You start out hating him, and then you find out as time goes why he is called the Kingslayer, why he is viewed the way he is, and all of that, and all the choices he made, and who he actually is, so that by the time you reach the culmination of the books that are out, he's one of your favorite characters. You're really rooting for this guy who at the beginning chucked a kid out the window to try to cover up the fact he's having sex with his sister. And by the time you get to there, you're like, yeah, this dude's one of the best people in the
who thought there'd be any coming back from that?
Right, exactly. And that's what I mean about the beautiful character arc, but also about the those unintended consequences, so that him saving all those people in King's Landing, being the unsung hero, no one knows that's what he did, led to him being looked at as the Kingslayer, as, this awful person, and, looked down upon, and almost thought of as an afterthought, and that kind of thing. Well, same thing I feel with someone like Kristen Cole. Cole was used. Cole was used twice. He was used by Rhaenyra, and he was used by Alicent. He was used by both of them. Once by Rhaenyra, of course, because she was all hot and horny for her uncle, who turned her down, and then she goes and decides to satisfy her needs by, having him, her Kingsguard, come in here and, say, satisfy me, kind of thing. Well, if you reverse the roles, everybody'd be up in arms, of course, because he had taken advantage of her. It's the same thing. It's the same dynamic and the same consequences, that you create a monster thereafter because you've taken something from this guy who wanted to be an honorable and good knight. He was out there protecting her. He was part of the Kingsguard, all about it, fought the boar for her and all of that. He didn't ask to, have a relationship or any of that. She did this. And then when he tried to, say, hey, how about we get married? Let's run away. We'll get married and, live this life and all that. And she laughs him off. Well, I'm not doing that. She actually laughs him off. I'm not doing that. Screw you and all the things you feel you've lost. No, get over it. That kind of thing. That's pretty dismissive for a guy's entire existence, coming from nothing, working his way up to, the Kingsguard, and then to be used and tossed away like that. And, oh, if you want, maybe you can be my side piece. That's pretty dismissive. And you could understand why someone would be bitter after that, once bitten, twice shy kind of thing. That's a big wake-up call for someone. And the consequences of that decision going forward creates who he is. So that now that whole situation, which becomes known to her husband, Laenor's gay lover, who then goes and tries to blackmail him at the wedding and say, hey, I know what you're all about. Let's, work together to do this because it's in our best interest to make sure, and all that stuff. Well, man, he's had enough of this. Beats that guy to death. I'm going to be blackmailed into doing, stuff I didn't want to do. Even it's going further down the path, right? To the point where he's ready to kill himself outside. He's actually in the midst of trying to get himself off. And that's when Alicent comes in. Alicent comes in and becomes the opposite of what Daenerys was, and offers him solace and purpose and care, that you still have value, that you have a meaning in life. I'm going to give you that meaning. Is it any wonder he attached himself to her and that his hatred for Rhaenyra grew, after all of that? And yet he's looked at with spiteful eyes afterwards. How can this guy be like this? He's so awful. I can't wait till he dies, that kind of thing. I see his character as kind of like that Jaime character. He's the product of those scars from earlier in his life that he's tried to reconcile his life with. And this is what you've ended up with. You've ended up with a man who is driven like he was before, but for the different cause, for the different purpose. The one who treated him in his eyes well, the one who gave him a purpose in life. I don't understand how people don't see that, how they just simply, pass by all that and go straight to hating this guy like he was born out of just pure evil.
Well, because a black and white morality is easier to apply than one that has shades of gray to it. Understanding. See, what you're talking about is understanding the motivations behind the character, and that's some sort of redemptive quality to the character itself. I mean, I can look at Sir Cole and say, no, I don't. I mean, I don't respect the guy. He certainly made some decisions, but he also has a code of ethic that just simply drives himself deeper into this morass of internal conflict. There's that. I agree with you. I don't think a lot of the things that it seems that people want to lay at his feet apply. You know, I can look at the character and understand sort of, okay, this is how he got here, you know, the arc of his story, and you know, see him as a bit of a sympathetic figure of sorts, but it doesn't mean I end up having to respect him. You
Right,
know, you
but
see him dig the hole deeper.
yeah, but unlike everyone else in the show, I don't feel like he became the Hand because he was trying to be the Hand, right? Trying to
Right.
curry favor, work his way into a position. He just was doing what he thought was right as a Kingsguard, you know, like offering advice, doing the different things. And he happened to be in the room when the old guy got fired. You know what I mean? And he's like,
Yeah.
fine, you're the Hand now. Whereas like everybody else in the room was like, oh, someone's going to be the new Hand. How do I position myself to get that?
Yeah.
I didn't get that from this character at all. Like he's in positions that were not like planned out, not connived
Right.
for, not, you know, not like,
Don't you feel
if I take, you know, if I take this queen to bed, he, you know, I'm going to get something good out of this. I don't feel like that was a motivation at all.
right? Don't you
Right.
feel like, as a
In
matter of
either case.
fact, the thing that drives him almost constantly is the need for redemption. Like he feels awful about who he is and where he is and all of that. And he's
And
got
how
a
he got
lot of,
there. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
he's got a lot of loathing. Like he
Yeah.
said, you know, I don't think there is redemption for someone like me. You know, I think, like you said, Mark, I don't see him as power hungry. I see him as driven, one of the few who's driven by that moral code
Right.
that
But
has
unlike
been.
Ned Stark, it's not a good code necessarily. You know
No,
what I
no,
mean?
not
Yeah,
necessarily.
yeah.
Well, it's well, Ned's
It,
actually had a few prismatic parts to it too, like his whole thing about the entire purpose of the war. You know, the war was started not because the Targaryen, what's his face, kidnapped his sister. That didn't happen. It was because they fell in love, and Robert Baratheon didn't like it and wanted to go to war because
no,
of, you know, there's
Mm.
there's never any clean history. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
There's no
Hmm.
clean history
now
with
look,
any of these characters.
Kristen Cole represents, you know, if we're talking about sort of the, let's take a step back and look at it from a high level, right? He represents that fanatical devotion to a thing that doesn't have the fanatical devotion to him that he does to it, right? He
Yes.
he he loves his role more than everyone else loves him. And
Hmm.
so now he is in this position where you're right. I mean, in the black and white morality of it all, he sees no way out, right? He's already violated some core fundamental values of his principle set, and how do you get back to that? And there isn't one in his mind. His mind doesn't allow for that. So, and then in the attempt to simply try to survive, you dig yourself deeper and deeper into it, and you find just people are going to take advantage of it. They're just going to take
Yeah,
advantage.
they
And
absolutely are.
and
Yeah.
so he wanted to be moral, but he found himself as the twigs on the shoulder of a very turbulent stream. And now he's just along for the ride. Um, you know, look, at the end of the day, he's still I would still say he's still responsible for his actions, and he probably knows his actions and feels responsible and shame and guilt and all of that. But they're still his actions, right? And they're still things.
Sure.
Yeah.
But my I guess the point of it, the thing I thought about the most was like Aegon as a character. Aegon was definitely a product of all of those around him trying to manipulate his future as well, and him never being comfortable with that either. And so you look at him with the incident with his chambermaid, where he assaulted her, right? First of all, would you blame her for becoming salty and angry at
I
Aegon
would.
and
I
hating
would.
him for the rest of her life
Yeah.
and calling him, you know, just whatever insulting terms she could for the rest of her days and looking for a way to end him? Would you look at her and say, come on, get over it? Everybody's used, you know, that kind of thing. It just seems like there's a lack of consistency for, you know, those kinds of characters and empathy for them. When um, I think that's what Martin is so brilliant at writing, is that none of these characters, even the ones you hate entirely, none of these characters is without some kernel, perhaps, of justification for how they ended up where they are. Even someone as loathsome as I find, like Laris. Laris to me is one of the more awful characters in
Which one's Laris?
Clubfoot. The
That's
one,
what I thought. Yeah.
right? He's one of those who I look at as borderline, if not full on psychopathic kind of thing.
Yeah, he's Diet Littlefinger.
Right. Yeah, that kind of thing. Now, Littlefinger's a good example because Littlefinger, you really don't, or at least at this point, you haven't found out so much of his past that you're able to see why is he who he is, you know? But that's because that's the exception. So many in that story have a past, have the reasons why they are who they are, and it never makes it a cut and dry bad and good, or almost never. You know,
Yeah,
I mean,
but that's what makes the whole show good. There's no
right. That's my
hero.
point. Yeah.
No one, even the best people in the show are flawed, have made bad decisions, have made
horrible decisions,
or trapped by their circumstances. And it is what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're playing the hand they've been dealt, and part of that hand might be their fault because they're human. Whereas a lot of the other stuff, it's like, oh, this person is so good and can do no wrong, and this person is so evil that you just can't wait for Arnold Schwarzenegger to shoot them in the face, right?
Yeah.
And
Schwarzenegger.
I know, but the bad guys are so bad, and the good guys are so good,
but you know, I was thinking about it. Game of Thrones and the House of Dragons and all that. It's like an incredibly well-written episode of Three's Company, where so much of what happens is because of miscommunication.
Yeah.
Right. And so you can see why things happen the way they happen, but you're not there to change it. You're not there to do anything but understand it and see how that goes and be surprised by, the outcomes. Right. But people so easily lose that and just fall right into forget about all that good, bad,
Yeah.
And I think the beauty of it is, as you were saying, Kelly, is that you look at Rhaenyra, you look at Alicent, you look at any of the characters in there, really, and you can see why they are the way they are, and you can see how it could have been different if only.
Yeah,
I mean, Alicent, for example. I mean, you just look at Alicent and the manipulations that went into where she is now.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. Everybody there is a product of like several things that happened before.
Right.
Yeah. But both of them are not wrong. Like I don't look at Alicent and go, "Oh my gosh, she knew that the other girl should be queen and not her son," and she's like, "No, we're just gonna like put my son on the throne and F her." Like, she literally believed that was the king's wishes. So she's not doing this out of, I want my son to be king and I'm seeking for power. She thought that was the way to go.
Yeah.
And in the same thing that neither of them are wrong in their viewpoint. You know what I mean? They're wrong because this old guy can't speak well, because they're on his deathbed, and there was some misunderstanding and whatever. Again, that error in communication, which is what also makes it compelling. Like, I don't look at the Hightowers as these evil people who stole the throne, the usurpers or whatever they're calling each other, right? It's not like that. You know what I mean? They both think that they're right. They both think they're doing the right thing. Everybody is like, this is going to be bad. When we unleash these dragons and we go to war, even if we win, this could be bad, right? Yeah. They've been very clear about that across the board. And, who dies? One of the characters we all like the most, one of the most noble characters. Who's that? I haven't narrowed it down much, have I? Who showed restraint from the very beginning, right? She could have ended the whole thing when she escaped with a dragon and just burned the king and Alicent and all the people that were there with her. This would have been a really short series, but she's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. That's nope. That's and spoilers, whatever. But it's the noblest characters seem to die first, right?
Well, generally.
It's
Sorry,
always
go ahead,
the
Kevin.
lies we tell ourselves, right? I mean, in the idea of nobody's wrong or everybody's got some sort of justification, the problem is that you're working from a justification, right? Is that, in Allison's case with the whole idea of her son becoming king instead of Rhaenyra, Allison knew what the plan was. She bought into the lies that were told to her, and she was looking for justifications of those lies. When you look to simply prove your own point, you're going to take yourself down a bad path. If you look at everything open-minded and take it as what it is, and try to find confirmations of the thing that you believe to be wrong, that it's actually wrong, then you'll find something. But the whole show is not. I mean, that would be applying logic to this, and then you have a really boring show. So yeah, all the characters are simply just looking for justifications for their own belief system.
Yeah, but you can understand why she started out that way. I mean, her dad giving her that role
Yeah.
to play, and you can see her
Well,
very
yeah,
uncomfortably.
the speech
You
where he
know,
said, hey, they're going to kill your kids, and all. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, he's already manipulated. You put the emotional argument in place, and then somebody tries to, prove the lie they now believe,
yeah,
and then you find
Yeah.
yourself too deep into it. I mean, how do you get
Right.
out
And
of it?
what's funny is this kid is a terrible king, and everybody can see it.
but
Oh yeah.
And
I think he
Allison would
could
be
have.
better as queen, right?
Well, that's true, but I think Aegon could have been a good king. If you look at what he did when he first took the throne, and he's got the people coming in, with their petitions and all
Right,
that.
right. He's trying to do
I
the right
liked,
thing. Yeah,
yeah, I liked what he was doing. I mean, he
right.
wasn't a jerk. He was good. The one
Yeah.
who
And
actually started to muddy the waters was Hightower again.
yeah,
Oh, you
agree.
can't do that because
Yeah.
this and that
Well,
kind of
what
thing.
about this? Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And they show the little kid, he's coming in, he's being disruptive at the small council meeting, and then
Yeah.
that kid gets killed, and now he's a different
Yeah.
vengeful character. You killed my little brother.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. You can
and
see how.
yeah, the characterization there. I see what you're saying, but once that took place,
Yeah.
he's an awful person. He's
Yeah.
impatient. He doesn't listen to before, you're right. He was listening to, his counselors and be like, hey, we can't really do that because now we're going to have to do this for everybody. And we can't really, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, okay. Like he's learning the role. And now after, this tragedy, he doesn't want to listen. He's impatient. He, wants to let slip the dogs of war. And those are not the qualities of a good king. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
the sad thing is, and the thing that it shows that I think is pretty realistic is how it's so understandable that you would end up with someone who is an absolute narcissist in the position of king, because you have all of these people who are under him as his counsel who are merely there to try to gain favor and gain more power for themselves and use the king and all of that. And so he's got all these bickering, differing, viewpoints that are not coming from a place of selflessness, of course.
Yeah.
How do you decide what to do or who to trust or any of that? If you're a good person, you'd have to be a narcissist to survive in that situation at all. And
Yeah.
you can see how that vicious cycle of, the kings that have been in the real world and that imaginary one, of course, have become, even if you had a good one in the beginning, they very quickly descend into just the absolute worst ones that could be, and end up toppling entire empires and killing all kinds of people, because the system is just, it's run by people, and it's going to end up in that same kind of. But that's what I love about Martin's writing, is that I think he encapsulates that so well. It just baffles me how people can miss that, such an important point
No,
of
it
the
doesn't baffle me at
storytelling.
all because most people are raised on Three's Company. They're raised on
Yeah.
black and white. They're raised on being spoon-fed the plot points. And everyone that agrees with me is good. Everybody that disagrees with me is evil, right? I mean,
You,
Yeah.
Mark, or
like
or just anybody?
I think we know the answer to
I
that.
think, you evil bastards, all of you, right? But I mean, think about it. That's
Matter of
what
fact, it'd be a great
that's
shirt,
what we
by the way.
grow up on, right? Is good
Everyone who
versus
agrees with
evil.
me
It's
is
very black
good.
and white, and it's just too easy to look at somebody that has a different opinion and ascribe that to nefariousness versus
I know it's just
why do
crazy
they
to me.
have a different opinion?
It's just crazy to me that essentially you have the photo album right in front of you of all these things. And it's not like it's a lifetime's worth of stuff that you have to go through. They're very condensed. They're hitting the high points to show you, this is why they are the way they are
Yeah.
and how it happened. And man, people are just so ready to, jump right into the bad, good thing and forget all about that other stuff. And empathy out the door and all of that. And it doesn't mean you can't enjoy the story if you have empathy for all these different characters. I think it makes it even better, to look at it as the tragedy it is. And
Yeah, did you guys see the thing where they asked the actor who plays Otto Hightower, some questions about like, and it's always broken down into, was it like team green and team red or whatever, they want to put everybody in camps, and he's just and his response, I'm paraphrasing, was, like, oh, what do you think about, the two different teams? He's like, these are all terrible people. I think we should just enjoy watching how they die.
Yeah, that's
I was
great.
like,
Yeah,
that's awesome, right? Because he gets it, like nobody here is the only true innocent is already dead. They cut his little head off, right? That kid did nothing wrong, and
you could say Helena is innocent. I could argue that the kid's mother, I could argue that because she hasn't done anything that I've seen that's wrong. She what?
She pointed.
She pointed. Mark's actual review of Sophie's Choice is how awful Sophie was. Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because I found that a fascinating and disturbing trend that I've seen from just everywhere about how it's just automatically, jumping on this character as just straight up bad when they gave you such a nuanced background and story and all of that to glom onto. Is just, I thought that was a shame because he put so much work into it.
I'm really looking forward to the next episode. How about that cliffhanger? Is he alive or dead? Who knows?
I know because I read the book.
Oh, I haven't read the book. Shut up! Don't tell me.
Tell him.
I can tell you how the whole thing ends.
Tell him.
No, I don't want to know. What happens to Tony Soprano at the end?
That's been a hotly debated topic for a long, long time.
He eats a sandwich.
I kind of like the idea, and there's a lot of people who will say, "Oh, he's dead," and they give you a lot of reasons and all that. And originally, what's his face, the showrunner, he was going to end it with Tony going to New York and getting in for a sit down, and there he gets assassinated in a big shootout, right? But then he decided on the way back that he was going to have that final scene in a restaurant. And I think he left it ambiguous for a reason. I think it's just, up to you. And I think that's the beauty of it. I think, as a matter of fact, one of the actors, I forget who it was, kind of said the story for The Sopranos ends right there. There is no end to it. It's just you were there for this amount of time. And right there when he looks into the camera, that's where you're no longer part of the story. He's neither alive nor dead. He's a Schrodinger's mob boss. And I kind of like the idea of him. It doesn't matter, I like that.
Yeah, it was
not the ending.
On the scale of show endings. I think Breaking Bad has one of the best, most satisfying endings. This one it's not Breaking Bad, but it's right there. Like, okay. I like the ambiguity. It was a little bit abrupt. We were all remember when it came out, like when it was brand new. We were all like, oh, what's going to happen? And it was like, on the one hand, a little disappointing, but on the other hand, we're still talking about it because this was one of those shows. Monday at work, we're all talking about it because we watched it Sunday night, right? And so they kind of kept that. And then there's been a lot of worse ones since. Well,
there's been,
you know what I mean, like Dexter and
a lot of worse ones.
Game of Thrones and like some of these that just shit the bed on the ending.
See, but that's the thing I like about this one so much is that as I've grown, I've come to understand what he was doing with that ending. And we hadn't seen anything like that before at that time. And so I think that ending actually was very appropriate. We just weren't, quite.
It didn't give us what we wanted.
Right.
Right.
You
We
an ending.
wanted, yeah, him to win or him to die is what
Yeah.
we wanted. And we didn't get either of those.
Right. And I think that's actually the best. I really do. I think that's the best. Not the whole thing is with the Sopranos was much like Game of Thrones. It's not there for your catharsis. That's not the point of it, you know? And so I like the fact that he didn't give you any catharsis, nothing. He's not dying. He's not living either. None of it. You leave the story before you get any answer. I think that was the ultimate FU. As a matter of fact, he said that it offended him as he thought about it, that people wanted to see, I think the quote was, they wanted to see Tony go face down in his linguine, you know? And he said that upset him because they had spent all this time, so many years with this family and they wanted to see this ending. He got upset with that and he said, "Nah, I'm not doing that." And so I understand that. I respect that. And I think as I've aged, I've understood that ending better. And it sits with me much better than it did back then. So,
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Yeah, it sits better with me now in hindsight than it did at the time. So
yeah, it was a really groundbreaking show in so many different ways.
Yeah.
So anyway, speaking of which, the other thing I wanted to bring up, if I may, is the whole thing with Gladiator. Speaking of satisfying endings, Gladiator 2. Did you guys see the trailer?
I certainly did.
Okay. What were your thoughts? Do you want me to give you my thought on it? Because it's real. If you want, it's very straightforward and simple.
Go ahead.
I think the music choice made it feel small.
So yeah, the choice of Kanye West for that, I was
Jay-Z and Kanye.
Yeah,
So let's be appropriate.
Okay. I wasn't really impressed by that. Now that argument is that in the first trailer for the original Gladiator, they had Kid Rock, the Super Bowl trailer. So there's an argument there. But yeah, I found it to be coming from Hans Zimmer, who did the first soundtrack. Apparently, the gentleman they have doing this soundtrack for the actual music as opposed to the gangster rap. He's supposed to be Hans Zimmer gave him his blessing and said, yeah, he'll do fine. But
that's his blessing. Yeah, he'll do fine.
Yeah, he'll be all right.
Harry Gregson Williams.
You can find worse. It's better than Fiverr, I guess.
I want to know what you guys think of what your impression is of the story.
Well, that's the thing. See, the music put me off so much. I can't give you an honest appraisal of it because it was so incongruous.
Oh, well, then let me jump in there because I had no idea about the music. But you guys might find this as a shock, but I'm not up to date on current popular music of the hip hop variety.
No.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm
really,
I watched the trailer. Okay. Yeah, like the music went straight over my head, didn't care. Like, didn't notice it. It was like, oh, cool, we're watching a trailer and I'm watching it. So, like, for me, I understand Gladiator 2 was nothing but a cash grab, right? Gladiator 1 was amazing, right?
Yeah.
It was one of those films that, caught lightning in a bottle. It was great. It was, I've got nothing but good things to say about Gladiator and the people who were in it. Gladiator 2, this isn't a sequel that came out 2 years later. This is a sequel that came out 20 years later. Right. And okay, so you got to put some big people in it because Russell Crowe's dead. Right. And so we've got Denzel Washington. Hey, we all like Denzel. And it's got Pedro Pascal. We all like him.
I do not.
They brought back. Nobody cares what you think. And then they brought back. What's her name? Hey, I'm trying to give my opinion here.
Yeah, the
mother
or sister.
Mute on Rich. No, but like. They brought back the woman from the first movie, right? The mother
or sister.
Yeah. Right. So they brought her back, and I'm like, okay, well, there's our tie-in to the first movie, and then like, oh, here's Maximus's sword and his armor and his ring.
There's more than that.
And all of that feels very like we want to catch the fairy dust of the first movie while making a second movie that's going to give us kind of the same thing, but a little different than what we've seen before. Like, so far, I'm unimpressed. The music has nothing to do with it. I'm like, okay, you got some gladiators. looks like Pedro Pascal's a general. He's going to end up as a gladiator. Where have I seen that before? There's going to be some shenanigans with the Caesars and who's running the place. And okay, like it hasn't turned me off, but it hasn't inspired me to be like, oh man, I totally want to see this. Now, having said that, the Caesar dude, who I think is that guy from Stranger Things, like the Dungeon Master guy, like they look good. They look like a different flavor of Joaquin Phoenix is crazy. You know what I mean? And I think that might
more
be
like a Nero kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, but I'm kind of digging that. So like nothing has turned me off, but nothing has really been like, oh man, I can't wait to see this either. Does that make sense? And then the music feels like extra. I'm like, okay, they chose a song. Does that mean that song is going to be in the movie, or is it just in the trailer? And why do I care? To me, that just seems like extraneous.
See, for me, it jumped out because it was. Look, I don't know about the Kid Rock thing. I don't remember that. If I'd heard that when I first saw the original Gladiator thing, I probably would have felt pretty awful about that one too, to be honest. So I can't remark about that. But I do know that hearing it here, because I'm used to the Hans Zimmer thing, hearing it here colored all the other decisions that I believe they would have made about the movie. I'm thinking, wait a minute, this is not giving me the same feeling I got from the first one, which is much more like a noble, epic kind of film, the kind that you wouldn't have gotten save for perhaps in the golden era of Hollywood kind of thing. And this didn't set me on that path. So all the other ones were, I wonder what the studio told them about this. I wonder if the studio told them, hey, put a rhino in this one so it's more 300 like, I don't, that's how it started affecting.
That was a cool scene with that dude standing up on the rhino coming out. I was like visually, it looks interesting.
And he threw 2 handfuls of sand and made a dust cloud.
And did a cartwheel out of the way.
He ninja'd.
Oh, that looks. I'm there. You know what? I changed my mind. I can't wait for this movie. It's gonna be amazing.
The biggest problem with the trailer is the problem that you're confused about the story. So
you're confused.
No, you are confused because Pedro Pascal plays a general, a Roman general. I know. Okay, you got that.
Like I said,
the main character played by Paul Mescal is Lucius. It's the son of Connie Hamilton.
The lady they brought back. We know. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Because it doesn't seem like you're you're following it. So
no, I was following it. I was just all those other things were intruding on it before I even got to that. All those other things were intruding on it.
I got it.
That was the thing.
It's apparently set about 20 years after the events of Gladiator, and it's during the time just after a thing called the time of the 5 emperors. So there were 5 quick emperors in succession after Marcus Aurelius, and the
downfall of Rome, as it were.
Sort of.
It was the beginning of.
Yeah. Well, what they're doing, and this is where it's kind of strange for me, they're taking Denzel Washington's character and making him the new Proximo, who wants to take down the Roman Empire. Yeah. The emperors, the really interesting thing is that the 2 emperors that you're saying, the co-Augustus is what they call them, they are actually the sons of a guy named Septimus Severus, who they enter into a co-Caesar, so they're together.
A pyramid scheme.
Yeah.
They get 2 Caesars, and then they get 2 Caesars.
But apparently, they're named Caracalla and Geta, and Geta and Caracalla do not get along, and one is crazy, and the other one is brutal. So there's
like
that
Scrotus and Rictus,
I guess, yeah. Scrotus.
One is brutal and cunning, and the other is cunning and brutal.
The way they presented Denzel Washington's character, I kept expecting him to say, "My man." I mean, it's very modern for a Roman gladiatorial promoter, right?
I kept thinking of Training Day.
A little bit. But see, that didn't take me out of it because, like Hunt for Red October, they didn't all fake Russian accents through the whole movie.
No, they cut away from that shit early.
I know, and I can suspend disbelief because I'm not sure I want Denzel Washington trying to talk in some fake Roman accent that I
No,
don't even know what a
I
fake
don't
Roman
want that
accent
either.
is. You know what I mean? I'm just like, let me hear it in English. You know what I'm
I
saying?
love Denzel. It's just like the character that Denzel seems to be playing is not the character. He's playing another character for, like Sean said, from Training Day. It's the same guy. He's just in Rome. But apparently Lucius has there's a line in there that confused me. It says, "I don't have a mother or a father." Well, you
Right.
remember your mother. You remember you remember who it was.
Maybe she betrayed him or something. I don't know.
Maybe, I don't know, but it's just a very strange setup to say that. Well, Lucius leaves the empire and is no longer the heir apparent, because that's what he was. And now he's brought back as a slave, and he's a gladiator, and his mother doesn't recognize him. And now we've got this. It's basically the same plot recycled.
Right. See, that's the other thing that I was
Agreed, yeah.
concerned about was that how many different plots can you come up with for the protagonist to become a gladiator wrongly? He's
Yeah.
taken in slavery and turned into a gladiator, and he's seeking revenge. It very quickly seems to box itself into certain story notes. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it'll be great.
It looks great.
Gladiator occupies a spot where people, regard it as a really great film that's, been put together. It stands up to the test of time, and people, it's a really great film. People are cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs over Gladiator.
It's great.
Gladiator 2 strikes me as simply, hey, let's make a movie. You're right. It's recycled plot points. Everybody's going to go see it because they feel they should like it. Right? Whether or not it's a good movie, we feel we should like it because of the story being told. Right? It's like Dunkirk. Everybody went to go see that, and they're like, "Oh, we're supposed to like this because it's a really artsy film about World War II, and you're supposed to like that sort of thing." It was a crap movie, and let's just deal with
Glad
that.
somebody said it. I agree, Kelly.
I
was like, what is this?
Yeah, and this is not to be but it's that thing. Look, when I see you pack so many A-listers into a thing, it telegraphs to me that you don't have much substance. You're trying to put more flash in it to put butts in seats because you don't have a compelling story to tell. That's the only reason to pack that many people into it.
Yeah, they fill up the Coliseum with water and put boats in it.
No, that looks
did
pretty
happen.
cool.
That
Actually,
was
I'm
really
actually
cool,
looking forward to some of the
and like
Coliseum scenes, like
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we've come a long way since Gladiator came out of the
Oh,
things
yeah.
that they can put on film,
Yeah,
and I'm like,
sure.
okay, let's see what they do. But again, it could go great. It could be like where like.
But see,
I
the
think
thing
it's going to
about-
look great, regardless of how the
That's
story
what I'm
turns
saying, is
out.
it'll
I think
look
we all agree it's
great,
going to
yeah.
look good.
It's gonna look
It's a high
excellent.
budget film. They're spending all kinds of money on this thing.
I hope that, but see,
yeah.
the thing about Gladiator that was so great, the thing that made, I remember I went and saw that. I wanted Helena to go see it with me, and she wouldn't do it at first. I went and saw it, and I loved it. So there's only been a few movies where at the end, I truly felt that catharsis that I was talking about
Mhm.
when they have the culmination of the movie. That was one of them. Brazil was another one, and that one ended up, of course, subverting expectation, which was awesome in retrospect. But in Gladiator, I remember feeling actual relief when Joaquin Phoenix left the stage, as it were.
Yeah.
I don't know how you recapture that
Well,
in this,
the other thing-
in a sequel that way, where you already had such hefty emotion for hefty motivations. I don't know how you
the story was wrapped up. There wasn't
Yeah.
No,
there
it was
wasn't this
done,
loose
yeah.
end. Right.
Yeah, there
So
was no
this is
ambiguity.
If they wanted
apparently
to,
Maximus's words fell on deaf ears. 'Cause
well, if
immediately
why
after he died,
why they didn't bring back Jimon Hansu? Jimon Hansu would be the guy that they'd bring back. And I love Denzel. I love most of the parts he's ever played. Have been some of my favorite films. But why not bring back Jimon Hansu? Would be the guy that you'd want to bring back. After the not yet at the end of the Gladiator movie. But the other thing is, in the trailer, if you watch the trailer to the end, they spoil it. They tell you what's going to happen. They show it. They show the ending at the end of the trailer, which I looked at it. I said, well, why do I need to watch the movie? I know how it ends. I know what's going to happen. You know, it was and it was the same signature move that Maximus used
Yeah, the double
against the one of the big gladiators in the first.
What if it turns out that Denzel only has like 5 minutes in the movie and he dies early?
I mean,
Right.
you know, he's the
Oh, I guess it is now. Oh.
Apparently, Denzel's trying to bring down the Roman, you know, the Republic. He's going to make it into. I don't know what the heck he's up to. He hates Rome apparently, but it's like you're saying, Sean. I think it's going to look, or Mark. I think it's going to look awesome. But the story just seems so thin. Seems very thin.
Yeah.
Right, but
Yeah,
having said that, we have a trailer,
Mhm.
right? And some people are like, they gave us too much. Trailers can sometimes do a little misdirection. Like, it's just a trailer. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Oh, me
So
too.
far, I'm on the bubble. I'm right in the middle on this. Looks going to look great. I don't think it's going to compare to the first one, which is hard, right?
Classic, yeah.
But no matter what you do, it's not going to compare to the first one, which might be why they didn't bring that guy back, because we're trying to make it connected a little bit, but not too much.
Yeah.
I don't, you know, that's just, I don't
mean,
know
the hero
anything.
kind of
I'm just
knows
like, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm hoping that they don't phone in the story just to make a big, you know, like the story's got to match the visuals. And that's my concern. You've got some good actors. The pieces are on the playing field.
It
Sure,
reminds me
like the last game, but
it reminds me of 300 Part 2, the second
Right.
300.
Right.
That's what it
Yeah.
reminds
Yeah.
me of. It's
Doesn't
just
that make it 600?
they made it. They should have just left 300 alone and not done the second 300 movie. It was okay, but it was just not.
Yeah, it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
This seems to be that same sort of effect coming into play. That
Well,
they're going to take a bunch of elements to try and make it like the first one, but it's
well, yeah,
not.
but it's not going to be.
Right.
But for everybody that tunes into this podcast for real movie advice, I would say wait for streaming. Okay, you'll feel
But I
less
do.
guilty for having watched it.
But I do. And you guys yell at me because I won't go to the damn movies.
Right. Or go get yourself one of your AMC Movie Pass subscriptions for like $20 a month or whatever it is, and go see all the movies you want and enjoy yourself at
And
the
then
theater.
wait for the 1 month where they have
in
a
the
movie that's worth a damn.
experience
Yeah.
that we all grew up in.
Mark,
No.
you kill me.
Experience I grew up in didn't cost $20.
But as an AMC stockholder, I
Yeah.
run that place.
There we
So
go.
I got a shill for the AMC Movie Pass.
As an AMC stockholder,
And if you're not going to do, if you're going to
see
see it at home, then I need you to go to the grocery store and pick up some AMC Perfectly Popped popcorn. They have it in the bag, or they have it in microwave.
No.
You take that mess home, and you enjoy the movie theater experience.
I'm
in
more
the
of a
comfort
rebel.
of your own
Mark,
house.
you're
Patron
so
myself.
ABC. Always be close.
You know, you're right. You're right, Mark, because no matter how you prepare it or get that popcorn, I've found that it's perfectly popped every time.
And delicious and buttery, beyond belief.
And
Mhm.
fortified with 8
Oh,
vitamins and minerals that you need.
That's right.
Just like Brondo.
I'm ready for that AMC sponsorship of Speak Nerd and Enter.
Yeah.
We may not get to this, but there is one, the other one, and maybe we can talk about this another time. The Hellboy trailer for the Crooked Man.
We're
I
not gonna-
I
saw
haven't seen that. I was
saw
unaware of
that.
that one.
Okay,
Yeah.
so why don't we pick that one up another time? That
Okay.
one, I'd like some opinions on
Hey,
that.
let
one.
me ask you something, guys, because I've gotten through a few movies with those girls at work. I've been showing them stuff they haven't seen. They just finished No Country for Old Men.
Mm.
When are you going to
And-
show them Lost in Space?
Are you like giving them a quiz after to make sure they watched it or something?
No, I know they watched it. I know, and yeah, we do talk about it actually. What would you? I was thinking something later, perhaps doing John Wick because they haven't seen John Wick.
That's always a laughter-filled good time. Is John Wick. I especially love the part where the puppy gets stomped.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't require much, you know,
Mhm.
whereas No Country for Old Men required a bit more, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And Dune, of course, and Blade Runner, you know, those require a bit. So they've gone through a bit. And so I was thinking maybe John Wick, but I was also thinking perhaps go a different direction and maybe try the Big Lebowski.
Big Lebowski's good. How about
Yeah, Big
Collateral?
Lebowski's great.
but I was wondering what your opinion would be.
How
What
about
would you think?
Collateral?
Unforgiven.
See, I think The Big Lebowski requires a certain type of sense of humor to get.
Yeah,
I
that's-
don't know these ladies that you're talking about at all. So you might be like, "Hey, watch this movie; it's really great," and they might be like, "What the heck am I watching?" Right?
No,
That-
I told
it's
them.
for
I
real.
told them exactly what you said. I
Okay.
said my reticence is you may not get it. You know, it
Mhm.
takes a certain sense of humor to do so, not to put you off, because of course I took my wife to it and she loved it. And so, you know, maybe you would. I don't know. And
Tell them,
But
show
I
them
don't know.
Gentlemen Broncos. Gentlemen Broncos is
Okay.
what.
So yeah, like with the right kind of warning, I'm all for it if you want to lighten it up. You know what I'm saying? But I
Yeah.
don't think you go into that movie
I think
unprepared. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Raising
rather-
Arizona, I think you can go into unprepared because
Rather
it's a
than-
little more slapsticky from the beginning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
rather than John Wick, in that same vein, like I said, Collateral is a really good movie. I think that.
Yeah, but they've
people
already
need to-
seen. I wanted to go in a different direction.
Oh, I
Something.
got you. I got you.
You know what I mean? So, because like I say, they've already seen No Country for Old Men and
Yeah.
Dune and Blade Runner and all of that. So I was thinking rather than hitting them with another one that was quite so serious, maybe something a little bit different. But
Why not?
Still,
Why not both at the same time and hit them with a little Jojo Rabbit?
Yeah.
Right, and it sounds like I'm joking. I'm really not, though.
No,
You know what I mean?
Jojo
Like,
Rabbit's a fantastic.
it's a serious movie with some
No, I
very
know.
comedic
I like
undertones.
Jojo
or
Rabbit. I'm just
I'm not sure
thinking-
how. It's weird because it's both, right?
Yeah.
Could always do Donnie Darko
I
and blow
don't-
their minds completely.
Yeah, but there's not much humor in.
No. Well, there is kind of.
I love Donnie Darko and I love Jojo Rabbit. I'm just thinking maybe something. Both of those require more.
Is Big
And-
Trouble in Little China off the table?
I don't think they'd get it because they're not guys, you know.
Okay.
And I think women. And this is going to sound.
No, I agree.
I
I
don't
don't,
know if
think
it'll
my wife
sound
is
bad,
a Big
but-
Trouble in Little China kind of
Yeah,
person either.
it's
I
just.
understand.
Yeah, it's more of our.
And
sense
she
of
calls
humor.
herself my biggest fan.
I understand.
Oh, Kelly's disappointed.
Harsh.
Harsh.
Harsh. That's right.
Speaking of which, speaking of harsh, are you guys ready for Space Marine 2? Apparently, it's coming very quickly.
Ew.
What, like in the next 15 minutes or what?
First of all,
in the
that's
next, in
personal.
the next month or so. I think it's
Okay.
September it comes out.
Yeah, late September, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, I might
Yeah.
pick it up. We'll see.
6-player multiplayer.
I know. Yep, I know.
Multiplayer
Oh my God,
co-op.
we could get the four of us and our
3-player
entire
co-op.
listenership
Player multiplayer.
together to play Space Marine 2. That'd be great.
Yeah, you invest in us on Patreon and we'll play Space Marine 2 with you for like 20 minutes.
It'll have to be
Monetize.
$600.
Woo!
It'll have to be $600 every listener to make it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, we spent $300 on the game. We got a little ways to catch up. So.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for this time, and I will see you guys next week. I think, right?
Probably.
Yes.
We'll see.
May
Who knows?
happen.
Anything could happen.
Anything?
No,
could happen.
actually, I am not going to be around next week.
Okay.
Okay, then I'll
well,
definitely see you next week.
there you go.
What a very special episode. Rich, I would like to congratulate you on your new computer. I have not heard a single audio mess up this entire episode.
Well, I also
that's
haven't
true.
said very much. So.
Yeah, that's true. I kind of missed
No,
it.
but you tried to make a cogent point earlier,
You did.
and your computer didn't cut out.
No.
So there's
it
that.
didn't. Yes,
Yeah,
perhaps
so
upgrading
so
from
we-
10 years old. Yeah.
we may have
yet
entered
he's
a new
still-
era.
Not that it'll matter.
All right, boys. Well, thank you very much. I will see you next time. Have a good week.
This
Okay.
concludes our Speak Nerd and Enter broadcast.